Okay, so when we are looking at our brain, I'll pick up the other one. When we're looking at our brain like this, we had said, depending on where you are on that brain, you are going to be sensing different kinds of things. And we had said that we have this central sulcus that separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. And we had so I'm going to flip around so you can see the slide. The slide is far better. I can't hold this thing and do it justice. So anyway, if we talk about what is the primary somatosensory portion of the brain, it's going to be the parietal lobe. So we have the central sulcus here, and behind and on the surface of the brain is the parietal lobe. And so when you look at this, you can see down low right here next to that central sulcus, we have the gustatory center. Now, gustatory is making reference to taste. So it's the area where you sense taste. And then we have these association regions. So we have this primary somatosensory region, which is right next to that central sulcus. And then these other areas, these are association areas. Now, remember we had said we had association fibers. So those are going to be connected from the primary somatosensory region to the association regions. And similarly, this isn't just parietal, it's association regions are in all parts of the brain. So we have some special things that we're going to be sensing. We had said that we have hearing that's right in here as well. And we have taste right there, and we had said the insula is right in that general vicinity, so that's why we had said it plays a role in that as well. Primary visual center, it's occipital. And you see we have this, and then the occipital association regions. We have understanding of speech. That is right there between the parietal and temporal lobes, and that is something called Wernicke's area. That is for understanding speech. Now, I'm sitting here generating speech, right? So if we go to the frontal lobe, which we had said is all about voluntary movements, I have to move my mouth and my tongue and all kinds of stuff in order to speak. We have this region right here. It's called Broca's. That's where I am generating my speech from. It's part of the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe, as we said, is going to be all about motor functions and that kind of thing. Underneath, we're going to have olfactory. Why do I not see it here? The sense of smell is on the undersurface of the frontal lobe as well. Okay, so what else do we want to talk about? We have visual, we have generation, we have understanding of speech, Wernicke's, we have generation of speech, Broca's areas, we have the olfactory region up underneath, we have hearing, I didn't mention that, of course it's on the temporal lobe. And then the other really interesting or important point is to think about all of the portions of your body. And we'll look at a slide next where we're going to be thinking about what portion of this, what part of your body is associated with each of these locations as we move up and down along the primary sensory portion of the parietal lobe. We could also say what portion of the primary motor portion of the frontal lobe. So, and in both cases, it's going to be the same body regions. Before we get into that, though, we have hemispheric lateralization. Basically, spoken and written language are in the left side of your brain, as well as scientific interpretation. Now, this is kind of a naive or a very too simplistic view of hemispheric lateralization. It ends up that the left hemisphere, yes, it uses what is known. So it uses what you know. It has a map. It has symbols. It has mathematical formulas in there that it uses for analytical kinds of thought. But it ends up the right hemisphere is the one that is more open to the world. So new stuff, music, artistic stuff, novel types of sensations, that's what the right hemisphere is open to. And if you watched that video that I assigned at the end of the last video, the last lecture, you will know all of this. It's a fascinating idea. So it's not clean cut, is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, so we have this brain lateralization, but I want to focus in on the central sulcus, either in front of or behind. If we talk about in front of it, we're frontal lobe, so we're talking about movements. And if we're talking about behind it, we're talking parietal lobe, so we're talking about sensations. In either case, we can apply that guy to it. That is the sensory homunculus. And what he is it's a human model that shows how much of our brain is associated or connected with the various parts of our body. And you can see our faces and our hands have a lot of brain associated with them. So if we think about the precentral gyrus, that's in front of that central sulcus, or the postcentral gyrus, that's behind that central sulcus, you can look at the model of the brain, and starting from in between the hemispheres, as you go up, one of those gyruses, it's associated with the toes, the ankles, the knees, the hip, the shoulders are right about the time you emerge from between the two hemispheres. Then you've got the arm and the hand, then the facial regions, and then the tongue and the throat. And so there used to be this really funny brain surgery commercial. It was Kayak Travel Site. And there was a doctor, a surgeon, who did so much surgery he couldn't even plan his vacations. So what did he do? He was a brain surgeon, and he was working, whenever he'd be working on a patient where he had the brain open, he'd be poking around on the precentral gyrus. So what lobe is that? Precentral. Frontal. And what did we say? Frontal lobe, that's where you generate movement, right? And so what he did is he'd be messing around up in this area on the precentral gyrus, and his patient would be looking for travel deals for him. He would be typing, looking for travel deals while the surgeon did the surgery. And the nurse didn't approve. She said, "That is so unethical." You may have seen the commercial. I hope so. Otherwise, you think I'm a raving lunatic here. You probably do anyway. Anyway, my point is, you should be able to, you should be able to tell me what part of the body will move or what part of the body will feel sensation when I touch various locations on either the pre or post central gyrus in the brain. Yeah, okay. That's just a fun little activity for you to do, and there will be one or two questions related to that. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and we'll come back and think about brain waves and sleep next.